our last investigation, we exposed the ultimate invisible tax, inflation, the silent thief that erodes your purchasing power, while the people in charge look the other way. We showed you that inflation isn't an accident. It is deliberate, a mechanism, a tool, used to quietly transfer your wealth to people you will never meet. But inflation is just a symptom, a side effect of a much deeper, much darker system. And at the center of that system sits the world's most powerful debtor, the United States government. $34 trillion in debt. A number so large, it has lost all meaning. But here is the real question no one asks. Was it ever supposed to be paid back? Every few months, you see the same performance, the debt ceiling crisis, breaking news alerts, urgent press conferences, politicians screaming at each other across an empty chamber. They tell you, the government might default. The economy will collapse. This is a crisis. It is theater, pure, choreographed theater. Here is what they never explain. The debt ceiling is not a limit on spending. It is a limit on borrowing to pay for spending. That already happened. Think about it. They already spent the money. Now they need your permission to borrow more, to pay the bill. It is a performance designed to make you feel like someone is watching the money. Someone is in control. No one is in control, and the ceiling is always raised. Since 1960, the United States has raised its debt ceiling 78 times. 17 of those times in just the last 2 decades. Every single crisis resolved, every single ceiling raised. Because the alternative is unthinkable. But this raises a darker question. If they always raise the ceiling, who exactly do they owe this money to? Who is holding a $34 trillion IOU and trusting that it will be repaid? Most people say China or Japan. And yes, they hold a piece of it. China holds roughly $800 billion in US Treasury bonds. Japan holds slightly more. But together, they account for less than 5% of the total debt. So who holds the rest? Here's where the story gets strange. The single largest holder of US government debt is the US government itself. Through a mechanism called the Federal Reserve, the government issues bonds, essentially I owe us, and the Federal Reserve buys them. With money it creates, out of nothing. The government borrows money from a bank that it technically created, using money that didn't exist, and pays it back with interest, which it then borrows again, forever. It is a snake eating its own tail. And here is the critical detail they never mention in school. Because the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, the United States cannot, technically, go bankrupt. Defaulting is mathematically impossible when you own the printing press. If you can print the world's reserve currency, you never run out of money. You just run out of time. Because every dollar printed dilutes the ones already in your pocket. So if they can print it, why borrow it at all? Why go through the performance? Why the bonds, the rates, the debt ceiling theater? The answer will change how you see everything. Debt is not a problem. Debt is a product. When the government issues a bond, that bond becomes an asset. Other governments buy it. Banks buy it. Pension funds buy it. The entire global financial system is built on top of US government debt. If the debt disappeared, so would the system. So would the dollar's dominance. So would America's power. The debt isn't a burden, it is the foundation. But there is a second function, a darker one. When a nation carries debt, it is dependent on the creditors who hold it. Behavior is modified. Policy is influenced. Sovereignty is quietly rented. And the same mechanism applies to the people. When you carry a mortgage, a student loan, a car payment, you do not riot. You go to work. Debt is the most efficient system of control ever invented. No violence required. The government isn't trapped in debt. It is using debt as leverage, as architecture, as a weapon of quiet, invisible control. And you are not just a victim of the system. You are a component of it. The government prints the money, but they aren't the only ones with that power. Your local bank does it too, every single day. We'll expose that illusion next. Shadow Ledger, HQ. Now you know.